obtain, stay the same, or be more difficult to obtain. And it turns out, right, given the very complex question of how easy divorce should be in this country, people tend to prefer the last thing I tell you. That just by going last, you get a bump. Now, this doesn't even feel like a leading question. I mean, you hear about push polling, you hear about leading polling questions. This doesn't feel like one, but it is. Right? If just by putting the option you want last, you get a bump. All right, so what does this all mean? God, it means people are a mess. Anyway, it means a few things. Right? It means that if we're looking for, rationality is a bad word. If we're looking for computer-like calculations in people, we're wasting our time. We're not going to get it. And in some ways, it's a fallacy to expect it. Because people don't act that way. Right? It means that people have very fine-tuned perceptions of risk and costs and the way we deal with decisions. But they're based on these sorts of heuristics. Right? And in some ways, there's sort of the good way and the evil way of taking this research. Right? The good way is, let's understand these brain biases so we can learn to overcome them and make more rational decisions. The evil way is, let's understand these brain biases so we can exploit them, right, and make people make the decisions we want them to. And you do see the evil way more and more in advertising and politics, in fields of persuasion. And there's a great book which I'll recommend called Persuasion, which talks about a lot of this stuff. For years I was writing about sort of the evils of security theater. Right, security that looks good and doesn't do anything. What this research really shows is security theater has a place. That making people feel secure is valuable. And the problem isn't when we have security that looks good and doesn't do any good, when we have security theater. The problem is when security reality and security perception go out of whack. Right? We want them to be aligned. We want people to feel as secure as they are, no more, no less. Right? And when you have people more secure than they are, you need some theater to get it up there. Right? When you have people less secure than they feel, you need less security theater to get them down to the reality. Right? You need to know where people stand. So I think we as a community need to spend a lot more time on how people perceive security, especially when we're designing products. Right? And it's simple stuff. It's putting the little green lock in the bottom left corner of our browser that makes people feel secure. Well, what are we actually telling them? We're giving them a feeling of security, but they have no context for it. So they think it's a magical green box that means they're secure. When in fact, that meant one very specific thing about how SSL was working. And it didn't mean the big thing people took it to mean. So when you're looking at user interface, or even how people just interact with security in the whole, I think it's real important to start looking at some of these cognitive biases. There's a couple of other books I want to mention. There's a really good book, not really about security, but it does touch on a lot of these topics. The book is called Stumbling on Happiness. Has anyone heard of this book? Okay, good. You're in for a treat. The book is by someone named Daniel Gilbert. And he asks a question, which I think is kind of an amazingly basic question as soon as I explain it to you, but you've never thought of it before. The question is this. We spend a lot of time trying to make our future selves happy, right? Going to the right school, getting the right job, marrying the right person, living in the right city, buying the right car. Our future selves spend a lot of time cursing our past selves for getting it so wrong. Right, getting the wrong job, marrying the wrong person, buying the damn TV. Why is it that we are such poor predictors of what will make us happy, you'd think we'd be good at it? Right? That's actually interesting. And that's what the book's about. The other book I'd like to recommend, it's a little heavier read, but it's well worth reading. The book is called Moral Minds. And what the author does is he's trying to study the basically the evolutionary origins of morality. And he has a very Chomskyan theory, like, as Chomsky does for language, on how morals work. And he does great things like there was this long-standing debate during the Enlightenment between Kant and Hume about how morals happened. And I'm forgetting who. One of them said that we would reason first and moralize afterwards. Another them said, no, it's backwards. We would moralize first, and then we would basically justify it. Right? So what the author of this book does is he throws people in their MRI scanners, asks them moral questions, and see which parts of the brain light up in what order. But I love this, that hundreds of year-old philosophical dilemmas are being solved through brain scanning. And the book talks about morals and how we deal with morals. Really interesting book. So that's the basic talk. A lot of what I've said here, with lots of references, is at this URL. And there, it's both sides. And I sort of urge you to go look if you want to read more of this. Some of the studies are just fascinating. And also, I've put it back? I've elided a lot of the details in the studies, because often you read the summary and say, oh, that's not right because they didn't control for this, or this will happen, or there's a way, it doesn't work that way. Usually the studies are much better designed than you imagine when you first read them. And when you start reading the papers, you really see how well they're designed to control for all the external variables. But this is all really good stuff, and I think it's fascinating. I'm really still reading it. We hope to have a workshop in this, in psychology of security. We actually get the computer security people together with the psychologists and the philosophers and the brain scanners, and because I think we have a lot to teach each other. So with that, I'm happy to take questions. I have about, 5-10 minutes. So I see a microphone there, and there might be others I don't see. And hopefully your microphone's better than mine. But some of you are running out. Anyway,